Hello everybody, and welcome to another YouTube video by yours truly, Vitreous Anima. And today we'll be doing my own series, a little bit of a workshop title of You Redeem Anima Guides. And today we will be doing a guide video on Jingliu from Honkai Star Rail. So Jingliu is an ice damage type character. With the Path of Destruction, she does really good single target damage, and then when she goes into her spectral transmigration state, she does really good AoE damage and shreds enemies really quick. Just to give a little bit of lore and a little bit of character. So basically, a little bit of lore of Jingliu is basically she's a former sword champion of the Luofu and the creator of the Cloud Knights Legends of the Undefeated Might. Now, her name has been wiped from the records and she is a traitor of the Xianzhou, walking on the fine line between Sandy and Marastruck. So basically, she was good for the Xianzhou, and then she kind of turned evil, and now kind of works with like Blade and is, you know, a little evil and kind of a traitor. So just to go through my build, this is an E0 Jingliu. I am a free-to-play player that, so I don't really get Eidolons. I just try to get, I just go for the characters, and then I just kind of work with what I got for an E0 build. So HP is about 3,700, attacks a little bit over 2,500, defense 1,000, speed's about 130, crit rate's about at 54%, and then crit damage right now is about 165.7%. So ideally what you want with Jingliu stats, you want to get about the 130, 135 speed. Crit rate, you want about 40 to 50%. I'm probably shooting a little bit over for crit rate, but that's not going to hurt too much. And then crit damage, you want to max that out as much as you can with having about, ideally the more the better. I have about 166, but I think they kind of recommend you trying to go to about like 180, 190, 200 if you can. But you know, sometimes when you're a free-to-play player, you don't have the necessary resources to get to those really high achieving builds. And your attack stat, you probably want around 2,500, so I kind of hit that. Ideally, the more the better. Ain't gonna hurt to have more attack stats. But, so light cones now. So, ideally, her own signature light cone, I Shall Be My Own Sword, is ideally her best. But, you know, because I'm a free-to-play player, I never pulled for her light cone, so I fell back to this option of On the Fall of the Aeon, which basically increases the attack by 16%. It stacks up to about 4 times to add about 64%, and then when an enemy breaks, and after the wearer breaks an enemy's weakness, it increases damage dealt by 24%. So ideally, this is like a really good break effect build, which I love running Jingliu basically as like a break effect team. And yeah, just that's kind of what I mostly do. Some other options you can do, you can also do like Secret Vow. I used to run that for quite a bit before I got Fall of the Aeon. You can also do Under the Blue Sky, which is pretty solid. I wouldn't recommend it too much unless if you really don't have that much crit rate. It does increase crit rate, which is kind of nice, but I would recommend probably you don't really need that one. But yeah, I would say most recommendation for free-to-play player, if you don't have your signature light cone, either go with Fall of an Aeon, which you can get from the Herta shop, or Secret Vow, which I believe you can just pull from the gachas and all that, and hopefully, you know, you get a couple of those. So, for traces, so I usually do a balanced build of the traces. I know there's a lot of, like, you know, optimization you can do, and I would recommend if you're trying to optimize and you're trying to like use your resources like to the best of its ability, I would recommend probably not leveling up your basic attack at all, because most likely with Jingliu, you'll be using your skill, you'll be trying to get stacks of Scissor G so you can get into your spectral transmigration state as quickly as possible, and then trying to keep in that state constantly by using your enhanced skill. And also we'll kind of just go through some of her basic stuff as well. Her basic attack just does 100%. Her skill does 187%, it gets a stack of Scissor G, and then when it goes into the spectral transmigration state, becomes Moon on Glacial River, which does basically an more ice damage attack, obviously, and then AoE kind of on the adjacent enemies. So it can attack 3 enemies at once, one being 234, and then about half of that attack on the adjacent enemies that you target. And then Ultimate, which basically it is just a stronger AoE attack, same kind of principle of attacking, you know, the targeted enemy with 285 and then half to the adjacent enemies. And a little bonus effect, it does gain a stack of synergy after the attack ends, so ideally you kind of want to use this while you're in the spectral transmigration state to kind of prolong your stay in that state, because for Jingliu, you want to keep her in that state as long as possible, and to really max out and optimize your DPS output with her. And then her talent is basically that transmigration state, where once you achieve 2 stacks, you enter into this state, and you get your action advanced by 100%, so you get to go again, and her crit rate increases by 48%. So this is kind of why I stated about you want to have her crit rate at about 40 to 50%, because once you get to the state, it increases by about 48%. I think if you max it out, it goes to 50%. So about that 40 to 50% basically guarantees you crits. I mean, right now for me, I have guaranteed crits right now in that state with the 54 with the 48%. And then once you go into the state, you basically just do attacks, and these attacks are special because they draw HP from your allies, and basically the more HP and herself, I should say. So she consumes HP of herself as well as allies, to about 4% of their max HP, and it basically, this consumed HP acts as a bonus just damage, and basically the more HP she absorbs, the more attack that builds up and increases to about 540% of the HP consumed. So it's just a really, really nice stat to kind of really just up her damage output. And yeah, kind of on the teams I build, I usually put about 1, maybe 2 people with really, really high HP, so it really kind of absorbs the HP. And this is kind of also why with Jingliu, you kind of need to have an abundance character that heals, so she can also, you know, kind of be protected, and like, you know, not your whole team just gets, you know, die from just getting absorbed HP constantly like that. So ideally you want to run like an abundance character, or just a character that can heal and, you know, self-sustain. Also, now we'll go through all the, like, the bonus, like, kind of the bonus, like, abilities that you get. So Death Realm, when you go into the spectral transmigration state, increase the effect resistance by 35%, which is really, really nice, because it also basically less likely for Jingliu to get CC, debuffs, anything like that. Just increases that chance, or it decreases the chance to get a debuff applied to her, because ideally you don't want her in debuffs, because it kind of wastes that moment of opportunity of like maximum damage output. The next one is after using Transcended Flash, which is her skill, the next action will be advanced forward by 10%. So that's just basically use her skill, she gets a little bit of action advancement in the rotation of turns. And then Frost Wraith, so while in this spectral transmigration state, it increases damage dealt by ultimate by 20%. This is why I kind of recommend you, when you get this final bonus ability, you want to use the ultimate while you're in the spectral transmigration state for 2 reasons. 1, the 20% damage increase, and 2, you gain a stack of synergy as well, so you can prolong and stay in that state as long as humanly possible. And then also, I forgot to talk about the technique, but the technique is basically, while you're in the open world, she creates this AoE that lasts 20 seconds, and any enemy that walks into this AoE basically freezes, and when Jingliu attacks it, she gains 15 energy as well as gaining a stack of synergy, and causes the enemies to be frozen for 1 turn. So just overall good damage, good kind of way to kind of start your battle, and obviously getting that stack of synergy really, really helps in order to kind of just get her going really, really quickly. So I kind of recommend, if you got the technique points and you're using it in like simulating universes, or even like pure fictions or MOCs, definitely use that technique. All right, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go through relics. So relics right now, I have the 4-piece of the Hunter of the Glacial Frost, which increases ice damage by 10%, and then the 4-piece is, after using the ultimate, their crit damage increases by 25% for 2 turns. So ideally, you also want to use this and the ultimate as well, because if you get 2 stacks, you use her for 2 turns, you get, you know, extra crit damage, and if I have crit rate about 100% in that state, you know, obviously it's going to be extra damage on top of it. And the planar ornaments, I went with the Rutilant Arena, which is the 2-piece. It increases the crit rate by 8%, but the better effect is when the crits rate reaches 70% or higher, that the basic attack and the skill damage increases by 20%, and this also includes the enhanced skills as well. So basically any of the transcended flashes, as well as the spectral mitigation, Moon of the River attacks, are going to be good. They're going to be increased damage, and you're always going to get that increase of damage in that specific state, so it's always going to be increased damage. And basically with Jingliu, this whole build is to get her into that spectral transmigration state, keep her in there, and just pump out tons and tons of damage to just destroy enemies constantly. And some other builds you can do potentially as well. I've seen 2 Hunter of Glacial Frost, and I see 2 of, I believe it is the Wind set, which is Musketeer of Wildweed. You can also run that, so that also just increases damage output as well as just ice damage, so it's just good damage increases. Another set I've seen that's kind of interesting, I wouldn't super, I mean, you could potentially do this, but I think this is with a really specific like quantum team, is Genius of Brilliant Stars. You can run the quantum set, and you would only go for the 4-piece of this, and the reason why you go for the 4-piece is that the 4-piece effect of that set basically grants 10% like defense ignore. Like basically when the whenever, like for example, if I have this set, Jingliu can ignore 10% of their defense, and if they have the quantum weakness, they can ignore another 10%. So basically it's just minus 20% defense ignore. It's really, really good, really strong, but it's a very, very specific build that you could probably only run if you run with like Silver Wolf, Lynx, and then if you have like Pela or Ruwan Mei, you could probably do that as well. But that's why I kind of run this 4 set and 2. And ideally for main stats, you got HP, you got attack. So body-wise, I've gone with a crit rate, but I've had attack and crit damage substats. And I've never really found a good crit damage body, but the recommended is to probably build crit damage as a main stat, but I went with crit rate just because all of my other pieces have really, really good crit damage substats. So I kind of just focus on getting crit rate up on this, and then hopefully getting crit damage substats. And then with the boots, there's actually a couple of options you can do for the boots. You can either go for speed, which is what I went for, which is probably what you want to do, because ideally you want her to go first or second in your team, so you can just get just going with getting, you know, turns out of the way, so you can get to that state, the spectral transmigration state, as quickly as possible. So around like her speed, you'll kind of want around that 130, 135 to kind of be able to go first and be able to use that skill quickly and just kind of get through your cycle of turns really, really fast. And then the planar ornaments, you want to go with attack percent, which I don't have the best substats, unfortunately, for it. So I definitely, hopefully one day can work through it and try to get better substats that will give attack. It probably won't give attack percent because the attack percent is the main stat, but hopefully going for crit rate or crit damage. And then for the ornament, you can either do ice damage boost, which that's what I would recommend, but you can also do attack percent or anything like that, but I would recommend either ice damage boost or attack percent, and I have a really, really good crit damage buff on that, but the other stats aren't too crazy. But this is kind of the build I've went with. This is the build I've kind of can produce and make the best Jingliu that I could possibly can as a free-to-play player. Now we'll go through Eidolons real fast. So this is in case if you want to roll for her. I would recommend either going for her E1 If not, her E4 is okay, but ideally her E1's really good, and then her E6 is super good, and I'll explain why. So E1, basically, when using her ult or enhanced skill, her crit damage increases by 24% for a turn, and if only one enemy is targeted, it basically gives an increase of 100% ice damage, or it basically gives additional ice damage that is equal to 100% of her attack. There, that's what I meant to say. So it's a good way just to kind of enhance more damage and just to really, really pump it out. So ideally, if you have the E1, you kind of, you basically use her skill, get the crit damage increase, then you can ult to get the 2 turns based off of the relic buffs that you get, and then just really, really pump out that damage. E2, after using her ultimate, increases the damage of the next enhanced skill by 80%. So this only works if you're in the spectral transmigration state, which most of the time when you use your ult, you should be in it. So it kind of, yeah, like with Jingliu, kind of the most important, like, way to play her is to, like, utilize her ult to the maximum potential, and ideally you want to use it and while you're in the spectral transmigration state. E3 is just traces increases for ult and talent. E4 is while you're in the spectral transmigration state, the attack gained from consuming allies' HP is additionally increased by 90% of the total HP consumed from the entire team. The cap for attack gained this way also increases by 30%. So basically it increases more damage output, but I would say it's not like, compared to what these two give a lot more damage output, where this one, it kind of gives like a little bit of an increase, but it's nothing like too crazy, because it's very much dependent on how much HP is absorbed from your enemies, or from your allies and yourself, which, if you're pairing her with probably people that have higher HP, it will definitely work out in her favor. E5 is basically more traces increase for the skills and basic attack, which this one's pretty solid, but except for the basic attack up, but the skill one is really, really nice. And then E6 is so when Jingliu enters the spectral transmigration state, the Syzygy stack limit increases by 1. So you currently have 3 stacks, of go up to 4, and Jingliu will also attain another stack of Syzygy, so it will go up to 3 stacks. And then while she's in the state, her crit damage also increases by 50%, which is a wonderful bonus, especially if you have about 100% crit rate. So if you're really pulling for Jingliu, I would say either go just for E1, just for like just simplicity and extra damage, but if you're kind of like a whale or someone that really, really loves Jingliu and just wants to get all the Eidolons, just, yeah, I would full send it to the E6 probably. That's probably your best bet. Now that we're done with Jingliu and talking about her build, her kits, all that, now we're going to show off some teams, and then I'm going to do a little bit of gameplay just to kind of show what I mean by kind of her synergy. So this is the team I usually run. So I love running the double DPS build of Jingliu, Blade, Tingyun, and Bailu. So Jingliu and Blade have such a wonderful synergy when playing together, and the reason why is when you go into that spectral transmigration state, you absorb 8, and then when you attack using the enhanced skill or ultimate, you basically take you absorb the HP from your allies and Jingliu herself to then add more damage on top of it. But with Blade's passive, where he has he basically has 5 stacks, and every time he gets his HP taken away, or he gets hit by an enemy and loses HP, and he adds a stack to that, and once he gets to the 5 stacks, he then does a follow-up attack on all the enemies he basically does a follow-up attack on all of the enemies. And this, probably Jingliu and Blade are probably one of the best synergy duos for DPSs, probably. I don't know in the game itself, but probably for Jingliu, if you're pairing her with another DPS, you want to pair her with Blade, because the synergy is just so fantastic. And so I usually try to run a Harmony character for my third. The recommended is Ruan Mei, which Ruan Mei is a limited banner. She's probably known as the best Harmony character for break effect teams, and unfortunately, I did not pull for her. I don't have her, so we kind of have to work with what we got. So I usually run Tingyun because I'm an E6 Tingyun, and the energy increase, the attack buffs that she gives, are just overall really, really nice, and especially putting that on like Jingliu, which I mostly focus it on Jingliu, but you could put it on Blade potentially as well, but you can only apply one buff at a time. But so mostly I try to focus on Jingliu when she's in her spectral transmigration state, and then when she's not, then I kind of put it on Blade for the time being. And then the fourth character, and I talked about this earlier, is you want an abundance character. You don't want a shield character. You don't want a character that gives shield, because obviously it would kind of hurt Blade, where if you have shields, and obviously if he gets hit by an enemy, it takes away the shield, and he doesn't get a stack towards his follow-up attack. So I usually run Bailu. Bailu is just a really, really solid AoE like healer, just does a lot of healing. Unfortunately doesn't have any kind of debuff cleansing, which kind of makes her a little bit, I would say, weaker kind of in like just the whole game, I would say, because I like debuff cleansing is so important, especially when it comes to like later games, like late game stuff. But a new character that actually came out recently, and I really want to try her, but I don't own her yet, but I'm probably going to try and roll for her, is Linksha. And Linksha is a fire type abundance character that also adds break effect stats. So I'm really, really excited to try her in this team and see how much she could really help this team just really, really grow. And also a couple other substitutes you can do for Harmony characters. So I also can run like Silver Wolf. You can also do Pela. You can do Bronya. Like there's a few characters. I usually don't run Sparkle. Sparkle's synergy kind of with this team, I would say, is not really that great. I mean, yes, the extra SP is nice, but kind of these two are really, really SP friendly because they just don't burn through like they basically use SP till they get in their state, and then they don't absorb skill points. They're kind of friendly. And then Bailu usually never uses her skill points, and then Tingyan uses her skill point once to apply the buff, and then she just normal attacks. So, and yeah, so alternate two, I usually can run Silver Wolf if you're kind of worried about trying to apply ice or wind effects on enemies, or just apply additional debuffs. Hopefully, usually, probably one day, like if I had to really choose, like right now, like who I own currently, I would probably put like, I would either put Pela or I would do Tingyan in this comp specifically, because Pela does a really, really nice thing where she applies an ice debuff, or basically decreases the enemy's ice resistance, but you have to get her to E4 to be able to do that. And just overall, like, it helps Jingliu out a lot, but it also doesn't help Blade a lot. So that's why I kind of run Tingyan, because overall you can increase either one of these people and then just kind of, you know, give, and then with her ultimate, have energy increase. So for example, if I'm trying to keep Jingliu in her spectral transmigration state, and I ult with Tingyan, ult onto Jingliu, hopefully get the energy increase, so then she could just ult again, and then have an extra stack of Syzygy, and then just keep going, and just keep that state prolonging forever. And then another team, and this one I like to call the kind of the hyper carry Jingliu comp. So right now it's currently Jingliu, Tingyan, Silver Wolf, and Bailu. Ideally with this one, you could also run Bronya, you could run Ruan Mei, you could do Pela. I think Pela works more for this one, just because you're mostly focusing on ice damage resistance, which it would also benefit, you know, Pela as well for damage, but most likely you're focusing on Jingliu and trying to like max out her DPS output. And then Bailu's just the consistent healer that I need right now that just does overall really good healing. And her passive of rezzing a fallen ally is really, really nice as well, just to kind of give that second chance in case, you know, Jingliu gets one shot or something like that. But now I'm going to show off a little bit of gameplay. I'm just going to do a Calyx real quick, just for a couple, and I'll kind of just show off what I'm talking about with this team. So first and foremost, just, you want to always use skill with Jingliu. Yes, I have her ult, but I want to keep her ult. And yeah, I want to keep her ult till I get into that state. And then I do attack increase here. Then we skill again. And then once we get to that, we ult. So then we can get that third stack of Syzygy. Also, I do have the voice acting in Japanese. Which also, the voice actors are really, really good. That's why I also fell in love with Jingliu, because Jingliu's voice actress, at least English voice actress, is Amelie, who's like a really, really good content creator that I like follow and support. So it's kind of just that bonus element. Alright, so now I ulted with Tingyun. I basically got the energy increase for Jingliu to get a whole stack back. And now I'm gonna do this and then ult just to get HP increase, but also to just, you know, hopefully to take care of the enemies here. Alright, so that's that, and then I'll show off the one battle with Jingliu as just like a hyper carry. And yeah, make sure if you have any questions, just throw it down in the comments below. I'll try to answer them and, you know, try to give some, you know, advice to anyone that has questions. And just to make sure as well, like, you know, maybe suggest who I should do next. Maybe suggest which character I should guide next, and let me know also in the comments below. But yeah. Also, we'll show off this last battle, and I'll show off kind of the hyper carry Jingliu. So kind of the same principle applies. You want to use her skills. You just want to apply buffs to Jingliu. And then why I run Silverwolf, I think in this situation you could probably run Pela. Pela probably works the best, but Silverwolf is always just a perfect character to run in case if there isn't ice weakness, because Silverwolf can just kind of apply ice weakness to whoever, and then just be able to just go crazy, you know, with the DPS output. So now we'll ult here, do DPS. I'm also just gonna pop a Bailu ult just to make sure all of my allies stay up top with their HP. This is kind of why you need that abundance character. You need that HP increase, so, you know, your allies don't die. Because Jingliu, especially when you constantly keep her in like the Spectral Transmigration state, her damage output is just gonna be ridiculous and not. Alright, so we'll do this. I'm gonna apply a buff, debuff. I'm gonna ult this one then. Oh wait, I screwed up really bad, but that's okay. The transition of waves threw this off so bad. So just to speed this up, I'm just gonna ult, probably not when I should be ulting, but just to kind of get through this quickly, and just to kind of get the advanced action back, which then I can apply a buff to her again, just to get the attack increase. And almost just wiping out the whole wave with just one AoE. But yeah, that's kind of just the whole gimmick with Jingliu. Ideally just a really, really good ice character that applies a bunch of damage to single target and AoE. She's a really, really good break effect character, especially if you're looking for someone that wants ice damage, or that enemies that have ice weakness. Use Jingliu. She's really, really good DPS. I would still say she's probably one of the better DPS characters in the game. Just when you use her correctly, she can just totally output as much damage as possible and just make your late game runs really, really easy. And yeah, I still use her. I would say she's one of my characters. She's probably one of my more break effect characters. I also have a few other comps I run as well, but Jingliu is probably my break effect character, and I love using her. She's one of my favorite characters. As I said, I love her voice actress. One of my, you know, just really, really good voice actress, really good lore, really good visual aesthetic, and was one of my first limited banner characters I pulled when I first came back into Honkai like later last year. So really, really awesome character, and I love her. And yeah, as I said before, make sure you throw in the comments down below who I should guide next, either it being another Honkai character or any of the other gachas I play, which you know, just let me know in the comments below who I should do next. And this will do it for this guide video. Thank you all so much for joining. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and hope to see you all on the next video. Peace out.